Hello, and welcome to today's Environment+Energy Leader webinar titled Case Study, National Retailer Transform Portfolio with Updated Building Controls, sponsored by EMC. My name is Jessica Hunt, and I am with E&E Leader. First and foremost, thank you for being on with us wherever you are in the world today. In case you are unable to join us live, this event will be available on demand later this afternoon. If you are having any technical issues, please troubleshoot first using the Help widget at the bottom of your console. And in case you still need additional assistance, please send a message to me via the Q&A chat widget. Attendees do have the ability to chat with each other during the event as well. To utilize the attendee chat feature, you may have to double-click on Enter Your Message. Please say hello. Let us know where you are joining from. I do want to say thank you to EMC for providing all attendees with a copy of today's slide deck. If you have questions for our two speakers, please submit over the next 40 to 50 minutes. We will do our very best to answer each question before the top of the hour, but if we do not get a chance to answer your specific question during the event, a member of the team will follow up with you as soon as possible. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our two speakers this afternoon. Akash Chandarana is the GM of IoT Solutions and Smart Building Controls at EMC, and he is going to be joined by the VP of Project Excellence for EMC, Derek Johnson. Thank you both in advance for what I'm sure is going to be a fantastic presentation. I am going to finish up talking at this point and rejoin everybody for the Q&A at the conclusion of their webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Akash and Derek. Go ahead, Akash. The mic is all yours.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are delighted that you have chose to join us here today. My name is Akash Chandarana. I am the General Manager of IoT Solutions and Smart Building Controls here in EMC. We're a company located in Plymouth, Minnesota. I've been with EMC for a little over 3 years. I previously worked at the local utility in town for about 6 years in a couple of different capacities. And then prior to that, I was an attorney for about 10 years. Our webinar today is one that is going to walk through a case study that reflects a project that my team has been working on for a large national retailer in deploying a building controls solution for them. I'm joined today by my colleague, Derek Johnson, and I'll go ahead and let Derek introduce himself here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Johnson, VP of Project Excellence over here at EMC. That's a fancy way of saying on the operations side, running all the projects that we have on an annual basis. But I've been with EMC for over 15 years, and I've been fortunate to see a lot of programs start and finish over here, and excited to talk about the case study that we have with one of our retailers today. So moving on to the next slide, there are some key takeaways that we wanted to focus on after we're done with this. And keep in mind, Akash and I need to try to keep this as, I would say, agnostic as possible, but we definitely want to try to dive into some of the detail as you're thinking about building controls within your own portfolio. How would it work? So I know we're going to have a question and answer at the end, but we'll try to, as we walk through these slides, get as specific as we can. But just keep in mind, just with the sensitivity with this particular customer, we have to keep things a little bit agnostic. But the 4 key takeaways, for the first one, and really we would encourage you to not only think about the operational side of your building. So, you know, at one pane of glass, you need to make sure that the lights are turning on when they need to, the HVAC, the cooling and the heating is happening as expected, security, whatever operations that you are monitoring, you know, you have that operational side that will work. But a lot of Fortune 500 companies, I'm sure a lot of you on the line today, you also have sustainability goals, lowering costs, energy savings goals, and really you can leverage these systems now moving from kind of, the old school, just kind of and I call it dumb building, but basically just sending out information. You're not really getting feedback or that heartbeat pulse back to a smart building. So not only can you send the signals, change schemes, do what you want, but at the same time, you're getting analytics back so you can make decisions based on trends or changes that you want in the field. So really trying to marry those two things together, the operational side and any energy or sustainability goals that you should have. The second key piece, once you figure out that solution, scaling that solution across all of your buildings. And you might have, and with this client, they had different buildings in different states of different building controls. And how do you marry that all together so you get a consistent pane of glass so you can have that enterprise type approach and look and react and see your portfolio across the country. Furthermore, once you get that solution and you figure out whatever that pane of glass is, finding the right partner that can install the same solution across all of your buildings nationwide. And you might have different pieces of hardware, different pieces of software even, and how do you marry that all together so at the end of the day, you've got that single source to look into. The third thing, anytime, and I'm sure everybody on the line here, same challenge, certainly for us when we're building a business case for our customers. When you come up with an idea or an initiative that you'd like to do, you have to show immediate savings for that ROI. Otherwise, it's not going to go too far. So once you identify what you want, what features you would kind of want and need with this new system, identify what those opportunities are for savings. We do have a particular side for this that we'll get into what we were able to save this particular customer that maybe you can use for some of your business cases. But coming up with an ROI is going to be important so you get the traction that you need internally. And then finally, energy as a service. I almost said lighting as a service, but it's also energy as a service. You can basically fund a program without any upfront capital by leasing out a program called Energy as a Service. And really the premise is getting the funding, you do all of the retrofits now, and those savings from that retrofit will pay the loan and pay the interest, plus put money in your pocket, being cash flow positive from day one. And we do have we'll go a little bit more into detail later on that, but just know if funding is particularly hard to come across, there is a funding mechanism that you can leverage the energy savings to fund a program like this. So moving on to the next slide, just the agenda that we have for you today. And Akash, I didn't miss anything on there, did I? Anything else you'd like to add in? Okay.
No,
all right.
I think that's great.
Okay, great. So for the agenda that we have for today, we're going to give you a brief overview of EMC, who we are, what we do, the verticals that we're in. We'll go through the case study in as much detail as possible, describing the challenge, what our solution ended up being, and the results that we're experiencing today, and some future results that we expect to have. And then we'll talk about that energy as a service funding program that I just briefly mentioned. And then finally, we'll end with questions and answers.
All right.
I'll hand it off to you, Akash. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to do my best to provide an overview of EMC. I think Derek will chime in as he's got a little bit of a longer tenure than I do here. But the company is pretty excited. We're getting ready to celebrate our 20th year coming up in February of next year. So it's a big milestone for us. I think really what provides the hallmark of EMC as an organization is the fact that we do project management at scale incredibly well. And I think that term best in class really defines who we are as an organization as it pertains specifically to large scale program rollouts. And so with that expertise and the skill set and the processes that have been developed over time and really steeped into the organization that Derek primarily oversees on a day in, day out basis, one of the things that we are able to do is deliver so many projects to our customers. And as you can see there's over 12,000 lighting and service projects that we're able to do in a given year. And what my team has done is really leverage that expertise and that skill set to be able to bring a similar concept and similar model building controls, which is really disruptive to that particular industry. Typically, you don't do that types of volumes in the building control space, but that's really what this organization has been built upon. And we do this kind of work for Fortune 500 companies. Those are organizations that have usually 1 million square foot of property in aggregate throughout the United States, and they need to be able to deliver programs like this, which help them save OpEx and energy savings across the United States by being able to go to one partner and being able to touch so many different locations across the United States, and that's what we do. One of the things that we as an organization and our employees are really proud of is that last item, which is the amount of kilowatt hours that we have helped our customers save. Derek, I think that we have a pretty big milestone coming up in 2025 as it pertains to that. Do you recall what that is?
Yeah, so we're going after 25 billion kilowatt hours saved by 2025. As of last week, I know we're on track, but that's definitely an ambitious goal. But we're excited to have that, and hopefully, come 2025, we'll be there. So
yeah, and so for those of you keeping track at home, that's a significant amount of power plants that have been displaced, car emissions and the like. And really, it's our way of contributing towards the journey to zero that a lot of our customers are on. And so that's a brief overview of who we are. And one last item I'll add is, as it pertains to my business group in particular, the Smart Building Group, we're a Distech system integrator, and that's really the solution that we'll be talking about later on in this case study. The next slide, I believe, really highlights how EMC has evolved from a lighting and LED retrofit company into a lighting plus technology company, and that's really how we refer to ourselves. As you can see in the top row, the first two squares, LED retrofits and service plus warranty, we really define that as the core of our business. That is what we do day in, day out. That's what the majority of our 200 plus employees are working on every single day. And we really do that really better than anybody else in the industry. Over the course of the last 3 years, we have decided to really bring forward other business ventures in response to the wants and needs that our customers have shared with us. And so the next two squares on that top row really relate to the two business units that I'm responsible for running here at EMC. The Smart Building Controls one we'll talk about in detail, of course, through the course of this webinar today. The one next to that, the IoT emergency lighting product, that relates to the other business unit that I manage, our IoT products group. And that's a product that we're bringing to market, again, in response to some things that we heard from customers directly and identifying a gap in the marketplace, which is a retrofit kit that works on existing emergency lights to test for life safety compliance. Down at the bottom, Derek alluded to efficiency as a service. Again, we will touch upon that more in this webinar. And then jumping over EV charging stations to disinfectant technologies and horticultural and human-centric lighting, that really comprises our specialty lighting group. Derek and I are both versed in that. Happy to answer any questions that you might have on that front. But Derek is, in addition to being all things operations, is also really spearheading our EV charging effort. And I'll let him speak to really our offering on that front.
Yeah, definitely don't want to steal any thunder from today's PowerPoint with smart building controls, but EV charging, I'm sure everyone has heard of EV vehicles and the promise of that's holding, and more EV vehicles are showing up on the road every day. Every year it's going up exponentially in terms of new vehicles being electric. So just building out that infrastructure to make sure when all these vehicles do hit the road that they have a way to refuel or recharge. So we got into that around 18 months ago. And as Akash said, we're a really, really good project management group. Lighting has been our focus, but as customers have more and more needs as we head into the future, we are starting to add those to our product line. Right behind EV chargers is going to be battery storage. And for those of you that have questions, on that, like as Akash said, happy to either schedule a follow-up, one-on-one discussion, or we can touch upon some of it at the end of the PowerPoint today.
Yeah, and as we transition to the next slide, one thing I'll just note about all of those different offerings is we invite you guys to our building because it is really a laboratory where we experiment with every one of those technologies. Actually, Derek has been pushing forward with this, with putting a high-speed, fast-charging station actually into our parking lot, along with a series of level 2 chargers. And so you can come and see that technology along with specialty lighting technology and controls technology. And it just an important aspect to talk through is the wrapper that we put around all of the work that we do, which really revolves around the 3 maxes that you see here. We love our maxes at EMC.
Seeing triple. I'm seeing triple.
That's right. And so we have our Energy Max, our Clean Max, and Smart Max. And the Smart Max is the one I'll talk about because that relates specifically to building controls. But the concept is really all the same, which is really taking our customer and putting their goals, their ambitions, their wants, their needs at the center of really what we deliver as a solution to them. So every conversation that we have starts with our customer and understanding really what they're trying to accomplish, be it on a LED retrofit side, aka Energy Max, be it on specialty lighting, specifically disinfection lighting, aka Clean Max, or building controls, which is Smart Max. And then from there, we really engage our very smart, talented people here at EMC. We've got a group of lighting designers. My team has got professional engineers who then sit down and look at those goals, those objectives, and then really come up with a solution that fits very well with whatever those goals might be, as well as providing some alternatives, because we appreciate and recognize that what may be the most wanted outcome can't always be accomplished in one fell swoop and may need an iterative approach, and we work towards that as well. And from there, we really focus then on understanding, are there contributing forces, meaning incentives, that could help buy down the cost of your program. And believe it or not, there are incentives across the United States for every one of these things, be it LEDs or disinfectant lighting or building controls. And we have a resident group of experts who know what those programs are, and then we'll work directly with the utilities to either leverage an existing program or create one specific for you. And once we've really captured then what the cost of the program is and what the program will entail, we then go inward and we start to then go into execution, which really, again, feeds into what Derek does and what his team does day in, day out, which is really looking at the logistics, the procurement, the sourcing, and all those layers so that we can get out into each and every location and implement the solution, commission the solution, and then be prepared to service that solution once it's been installed. So we have a lot of pride in the fact that we have a comprehensive approach to all this and process for this. Derek, do you think I captured that, or is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, a couple things that I would just add. So what Akash just went through is our total turnkey approach. And there are 2, I would put, when you're selecting a partner of yours to roll out, whether it be a lighting retrofit, controls, whatever, there's a key difference in a true turnkey approach and someone that says turnkey. And what I mean by that is all of these services that Akash just listed off are all in-house to EMC. We have departments built around that. So when we say we audit, that's EMC employees going out to audit. When we design, whether controls or lighting system, those are EMC employees. And the importance of keeping this all in-house under one roof, we own the entire process. So the discovery mode, figuring out what's there, the design, what did we build the BOM with, and what's the design intent, ordering the product and getting it there and aligning our installation crews, that's all us. So you have one partner that has ownership from the beginning to the end. There are a lot of people out there today that are turnkey, but what they do is they'll sub and they'll partner with different organizations for that. And what that leads to is just a bunch of different handoffs, which ultimately could cause issues and finger pointing, when things do not go, as planned. So as you're, thinking about, the solution, what you think you may want to do, and then you have to go out and find partners to implement it. My main key takeaway from this slide, and just in general, would be find somebody that has the entire process in-house. So you're working with one entity, through the challenges, through the program, to make sure you get the end result that you want.
think we can transition to the next slide then, which is the return on investment pie. And that's something that we created specifically for our smart building controls team. And the reason we felt very compelled to creating this is that, again, as I described my background, you probably heard that I'm not a controls person by training. And one of the things I observed as I came into this role was that a lot of controls organizations spoke about the return on investment in very generic terms. You know, hey, if you install this, you know, you'll get an you'll save 25 to 30% right away by doing this. But it's very behavioral in nature. And so if somebody chooses not to do that, they're not going to see that return on investment. And that really degrades credibility. And so as a team, we took a step back and we're like, how can we really define this in a more tangible and concrete way? And we came up with 4 ways that we really feel that ROI can be defined and proven as it pertains to controls. Energy management is the first one, which I think we're all very familiar with, especially those of us that have been in the industry for a bit. Provided a couple of examples there. I really perceive this to be table stakes. This is something that's been around in the energy utility industry for over a decade, if not longer at this point. And really demand side management is something that is all near and dear to our hearts, and LEDs have really brought that forward as something that we all talk about. But, you know, a controls package and a control systems can really help you see how much energy you're using, trend it, analyze it, and then optimize what you're doing, and then see and measure the results of that, which again drives a return on investment. I think the next 3 are really things that we feel very passionately about, and we will talk further about as we go through this case study. Number 2 is the IoT integration piece. It's really the concept of all these smart things that are coming out and all the new technology that's coming out. How do you make sure that the data from those items come back into a single dashboard or a single platform, not only so that you can see it, but that you can do something with it? And so again, we can highlight EV chargers. Derek spent some time talking about that. You know, those devices are fantastic for engagement with your customers and providing a meaningful service. But those devices are actually going to have some problems from time to time, and being able to see that there's a challenge that requires maintenance so that you're not hearing from an angry customer about that, but instead are seeing it proactively so you can dispatch is what we're talking about with IoT integration. Platform integration, number 3, again, I think we all experience this in our personal lives, which is every single thing that you log into needs a username and a password. And as these usernames and passwords get more and more creative and more complex, logging into those different windows becomes kind of a pain in the butt from time to time. And so in your professional life, that same thing happens. And we are challenging ourselves to find ways to minimize the number of times that you have to open up a new pane of glass in order to accomplish a task. And as we get into the case study, we'll explain some things that we're doing on that front. And then lastly is maintenance improvements. You know, we joke, our slogan is we're trying to make maintenance better. And there are lots of ways that can happen and can be measured, as simple as reducing the number of truck rolls to actually seeing things that are going to happen in breakdown so that you can bundle maintenance tickets together. Again, creating more efficiencies, which lowers your OpEx, which then means that you can do more with your maintenance budget. And so those are the meaningful and measurable ways that we've tried to redefine the ROI conversation so that there's some real tangible ways that you can say, yeah, I kind of want to move forward, or I do want to move forward with that controls investment because I can see these 4 things come to life. Next slide. All right. So the sweet spot, we've talked about this. I'm not going to really belabor this too much. I think the only thing I'll touch upon is the open networks aspect of this. EMC is a Distech solution house, and we use Distech in this particular situation because it truly is an open framework. And as you are thinking about a solution that you may want to put into your environment, just know that as you've heard us talk through this, we focus on ROI. Derek has a team that is really focused on speed of execution, national coverage, and consistency. And then my team is very focused on, in addition to ROI, but this concept of open networks. Do you have anything to add to that, Derek?
And I would say it's, and I know we're going to hit on, being brand agnostic later on in the PowerPoint, but DisTech integrator, in this case, we looked through 5 to 10 different controls, providers, and really dialed in on this to be the right solution for this retailer. I think it's important though, as you're looking through your buildings, your portfolio, different manufacturers have different pros and cons to each, and finding a provider that can sit with you and go through those pros and cons and find the right fit manufacturer for your implementation is key. So we'll go through some of the reasons why we did fall on this solution to be the right one for this client, but just know having that brand agnostic or vendor neutral approach should be first priority, and finding the best manufacturer to fit your application.
All right. So I'm going to let Derek set up the case study for us.
All right, and so setting the stage with this particular retailer, keeping things as I mentioned before, as high level as we can to be respectful. But it is a national retailer. We're about halfway through the program. 800 plus store locations across the country. Around, I think they're in every single state actually in the United States, but we're working through all that right now. Their current condition, they had multiple levels of aging controls. So they had some buildings with, these controls have been in there 20 plus years. Some have been upgraded through the years. Some were working, some were not working. So just kind of trying to piecemeal what we could together to, again, bring that holistic, enterprise software view. So regardless if it was, controls from 20 plus years ago and we had to rip and replace, to, hey, we were able to utilize this JACE controller at this particular location and just reprogram it. They had a kind of a multitude of different control ages and just inversions at each building. And then also it was very much proprietary in that they had to rely on the same vendor or a couple of vendors to either repair, make program updates. And what was important to this client was to get rid of that. They wanted to essentially to have us hand over the keys when we were done with the installation, and then they can decide what vendors or whom they'd like to bring in to maintain their system. So we were battling old, proprietary systems to make sure by the time that we were done with it, it became an open source. And the necessary outcomes, we've hit on these a little bit, and I mentioned that vendor neutral approach, but we did dial in on DisTech for this particular outcome. But like I said, we vetted 5 to 10 different manufacturers to figure out what was the best fit, and it ended up rolling out with DisTech on this one. The HVAC controls, they wanted to have not only make sure that they had absolute control over that, but they wanted to know if units were down, which units were working, which ones were not working properly, which units, how many hours annually, so they could kind of do an analysis just in terms of load reduction. For the lighting controls, not only to have the lights come on and off as needed, but also there's an opportunity with LED to dim those lights during certain parts of the day. So integrating that with the skylights to make sure that those lights were dimming as appropriate. Exterior lights, I'll hit on that just for a second. I mean, just something as simple as making sure the lights turn on at the right time and turn off at the right time. We're headquartered here in Minnesota, right? So they had a traditional kind of time clock where lights would come on during the certain part of the day and turn off during the certain part of the day. Well, in Minnesota in the winter, it gets dark at 4:30 and it doesn't get light until about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. In the summer, we can stay light out here as late as 10 o'clock, and sun rises as early as 5:30 a.m. So the shifting of that and making sure you have a smart building control system that can adapt without taking a human to go in and change those settings can save a lot of money. Every hour adds up when you have hundreds of locations across the country. Doing that systems analysis, so figuring out what's my worst performing store, what's my best performing store, what are the differences, what can we do? Maybe sending a proactive ticket saying, hey, this, for whatever reason, this square footage of this building is the same as this one over here, but I'm burning 30% more kilowatt hours on a daily basis. Let's go figure out to see, Is it HVAC equipment that's running inefficiently? Is it the lighting not turning off during the night? I mean, what's going on? So being proactive. Future proofing, and that's going to be a huge one, especially moving in the next 5 to 15 years. So you've got your core things in your operation side, right? Your lighting, your HVAC, security, but there are future add-ons that are going to happen, such as EV chargers, battery storage. You might want to incorporate disinfectant lighting within your air ducts to turn on and off based on occupancy, etc. So having I would say a modular system that you may not use the add-on blocks today, but it has the capability of adding them on tomorrow. And then generating revenue. So leveraging the system to put more money in your pocket. Do that in several ways, and we're going to get into some of those ROI business cases a little bit later. But demand response, so when the utility needs the energy, being able to effectively load shed your building without the discomfort of your customers or your employees. So maybe you dim down the lights 50%, you don't have to turn anything off. HVAC, maybe you shut down half the units, but you still have baseline cooling going to your building. But being able to have that flexibility and a smart system to be able to take advantage of that. Akash, anything you'd like to add?
I think it sets up the next few slides, which are really oriented around what the customer wanted. But the one thing to add on that last piece, the demand response piece, is, oftentimes we think of these opportunities or that solution in one location. And one of the real values of doing the kinds of projects that we're doing, where we're touching hundreds of locations, is the ability to aggregate that capacity or that capability, in a geography or in a state, so that you're really multiplying or creating an exponential effect on that ability of demand response. And so the case study and the solution, as we get into the next slide here, is really oriented from the perspective of our customer and building upon what Derek just shared with us, which is, what was the problem statement. And a few other layers that, this customer shared with us. One, is just they had experience with us as a legacy customer, and a really positive experience with us on the lighting side, and saw the real value of turnkey, and not turnkey light, but turnkey as we defined it several slides ago, in terms of a full comprehensive turnkey offering. And so they really told us openly and directly that, hey, we really want you to take everything that we're asking and all these requirements that we have, and really come back and tell us what it would take to take this entire concept and program end to end, from conceptualization to delivery. And so that was a pretty key aspect of it. On the incentive side, again, this customer had great experience on the lighting side, saw a lot of value in terms of the incentives that we were able to deliver for their lighting program, and said, hey, in addition to the controls work that we're doing, we're also combining some of these controls rollouts with replacing all of our HVAC units. And so and we want you to look for incentives, either routinized programs that utilities have or customized programs, and go apply for them, so that we can start to see the value of some rebates coming back, and really helping contribute towards the cost of this program. And so that is another value that we provided to this customer. And then the last two pieces, custom programming. So really the experience that this customer had is that there was a lot of really good programs out there, a lot of good software developed, but it was pretty generic in nature, and it really wasn't oriented towards what retailers need. And every organization that's in the system integrator spaces is willing to take on and do customization, but it's usually off of a framework and a backbone that they've already have. And so it's really, hey, here's my cookie, and I'll decorate it the way you want to. We took a different approach, which was really to understand what all the challenges were for this customer, understand their pain points, and then collaborate and really define and develop a custom solution both at the local level and an enterprise level that really integrate with their business and accomplish the goals that they're trying to do. So they really were looking for a partner that was more flexible and nimble from that perspective, and not really bringing, here's my off the can solution or off the shelf solution, and let's, put some window dressing on it to make it work. And then lastly is, great, you've installed it. Can you go back and go fix it? And again, one of the things that we have developed through the course of our 20 years of existence as EMC is really a network of service providers that can go into any state and provide that kind of service for our customers. And so that was, kind of adding another layer onto the customer equation. These are the pieces that all had to fit together in addition to the information that Derek previously shared. So move on to the next slide, please. Cool. So, when we put these pieces together, the next important thing is really how do you roll it out? And again, I think that this really starts to unpack a bit how we separate ourselves from other system integrators in the space. And so, we worked with our customer, we piloted our solution both at a hardware level and a software level, in a really tight geographic space. And then and we did a handful of deployments. And then last year around Q3, we did a more substantive rollout, but it was intended to be tempered. And so, we did a 5-store pilot, then we did a 60-store retrofit rollout, and really used that as an opportunity to learn in terms of what we needed to do to be better and to be able to scale at the speed that this customer wanted. And, this customer in particular has a goal and an aspiration to change over all of its locations in under 3 years. And so that's a very aggressive goal. And, they're really, again, we're looking for a partner that would take on that challenge. And that's what we did this year. And in taking this stepped approach, pilot, retrofit to expansion, we were able to go run this year at a pace of 350 locations that we went into and retrofitted or put in a new system in, and really got very far along the path of helping this customer accomplish its goal of having this program done in under 3 years. I think a key thing to just note real quick too, along with that, is we were doing this all in the midst of all the supply chain issues that have been percolating and confronting all of us. And one of the things that we partner very closely with this customer is just a unique and novel way to make sure that we could order hardware, manage supply chain in such a manner that they felt no disruptions from that. And, as we're wrapping up the year, I can tell you that we didn't miss a single installation due to supply chain constraints, which given what the rest of the world faced this year, that's a real testament to the work that we put into this program in partnership with our customer.
I think important on this slide, once you get the solution, do a pilot, 5 to 10 sites, you're going to learn a ton throughout that process. You might think you have the right solution, but I promise you will learn with those first 5 to 10 on what you thought would work on paper, what what became reality. From there, then do a soft start. I think we did 50 to 60 locations after the pilot, work out the additional kinks, then take off and run and do the 350 or whatever, do the controls work at volume. But I would definitely start with the pilot, then do a little bit of a bigger roll out 50 to 60 locations and then run.
All right. This slide is, really oriented towards just providing some examples of the types of information that this customer really wanted to have tangible and accessible quickly. And so, I think that a lot of these are self-evident, and they really are representative list of the types of things that are meaningful for retail store operators. I think the most important thing to think about with all of these is that it reflects a partnership between us and any one of our customers in really driving up the data and putting the data in a package and in a wrapper that makes it most meaningful and useful for you. And so all of these things are really important in terms of understanding what's happening in a building, attacking it so you can lower your energy usage or lowering your operating expense. And we really work closely and in partnership with our customer to make sure it got presented in such a fashion that it was actionable, accessible, and then just movable, like that you could do something with it and do it quickly. So we can talk more about this in the Q&A if people have questions about it. So the results. So what did we do? How did this pan out for us? We're very pleased that it panned out really well. And sometimes the most simplistic way to deliver the news on how well it panned out is, hey, are we going to move forward? And the answer is yes. And every year, for those of you that are in the operations side of your business and you have a program that you really love, you always have to get it refunded. And we're happy to report that our customer has received funding to go forward and try to finish this program in this year. And we're more than ready for the task. In terms of what did we specifically deliver for our customer, Derek's going to talk a little bit about a novel IoT device integration as part of measuring the return on investment. The one I'll touch upon just really quickly is we came up with a novel way to really normalize the energy usage across a good functioning store for this customer to create an energy score. And with that, we're able to put an energy score on maintenance activities and maintenance decisions to help prioritize which maintenance decisions or tickets, if addressed and resolved, would provide the best payback in terms of lowering energy. And so this was something that we as a team worked really diligently on how to present this information in a different and new way that again relates to that actionable, accessible concept that we like to bring to any problem that we're solving. And so that was something that won't show up in some of the later slides, but is really important because it just highlights the creativity that we work with, the innovation that we use, and just bringing a novel solution to market. On the dashboard side of this, again, we came up with something that was customized for our customer. And really the uniqueness of it is the fact that what is being used at a local level looks a lot different than what is at an enterprise level. And appreciating that when we're operating with a local dashboard, that's really an operational framework. That's something that you got to get in and be able to use so that you can make some changes to individual HVAC units, individual lighting controls, interior, exterior. It's got to present a lot of information all at once in a meaningful and actionable way. Enterprise level, you're really synthesizing information, and the fact that we have different platforms for different profiles for different users is really unique and novel. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of other SIs out there that are thinking about how different users need access to different things because they're really doing different functions. The other one I'll touch upon is the bulk scheduling, and I'll just share an anecdote. Typically whenever you have to change lighting schedules or HVAC schedules, you really have to make about 6 or 7 clicks to get in, log in, find the thing that you want to change it, then confirm the change, and then then you got to get out of that and open up another store. We've developed a tool that allows you to do that in 3 clicks across all your locations, and what would normally be maybe a multiple hour task is now done in 5 minutes. The last one, initial savings and future-proofed. I think that we've talked a lot about this. I think Derek touched upon this. Hey, this particular customer had old systems, obsolete systems. By moving to something new, we were able to improve enterprise security, which is on everybody's mind nowadays. By moving to something new that is thinking about the future, and with an open system such as the one that Distech provides, we're also able to create a path to new technology that will come out that will unleash additional savings and additional opportunities for this customer. I put a lot out there, Derek. Did I miss something? Is there something that really resonates with you that you think that we need to flesh out a bit more?
No, I don't think so. I think if we go to the next slide, really taking this, we've got this, one solution in mind, but then now rolling it out to multiple different buildings. And as I mentioned before, we've got, we had 5 or 6 different, when you get into the building, oh, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Over the years, it's been serviced or maintained, things been replaced. But always, the goal is once you get that hardware and software solution, figuring out how you become more efficient or most efficient with the existing hardware that you have in the building. So there are some buildings that we had to do a total rip and replace, nothing could be saved. There are some that we saved half of the existing hardware that was in there, just reprogrammed, the JACEs and some of the set points and sensors. So really then the next step is once you sit down, you select your manufacturer, you select the business case that you want. Here's what I want controlled. Here are the energy savings that we need. Then you pick the right manufacturer, right? Set the solution, and then you roll it out nationwide to make sure you have a consistent experience.
Yeah, and I think this map shows our ability to go deliver for a customer in almost every state in the United States. And once we're actually done with this program, it will be every state, not only the lower 48, but also Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah. So I know we're running short on time. I think we have 3 or 4 slides left, so I think I will try to get through this as quickly as possible to make sure we have questions and answers at the end. But going back to getting the savings, right, and the ROI and identifying that, so when you go internally to go get the approval, to have something in your back pocket to say, you know what, yeah, I want to spend this much, but here's what we can expect, in savings. And those top 2 are real savings that we were able to achieve for the customer. I talked about that first one earlier about just making sure lights turn on and off, when they're supposed to. And there's no greater energy savings than off when you don't need lights on if you're able to turn systems on and off at the right time. So just being able to tweak the exterior lighting, we were able to save $2 million annually for this customer. Trash compactor. So this was a simple leveraging IoT where it wasn't in the initial solution, but we had the add-on capability where this customer was having weekly trash hauls with their dumpsters. And regardless if that dumpster was half full, all the way full, not full at all, they were having a weekly scheduled trip. So putting a sensor to measure the compactor on these dumpsters to when it gets to a certain PSI, the dumpster is 3/4 of the way full, then do the call for the trash company to come and pick up that dumpster. That initiative saved an additional $2 million. And then just the man hours or the time that your team is spending looking into these controls or fixing problems when they happen, being able to push out by a couple strokes of the key a command that changes a group of stores versus having to go in there one at a time. So think holiday season, we're in that right now, extended store hours. Rather than going into each store and affecting the hours and when the lights turn on and off, being able to click it in once, send it to a group of stores, and it all happens at once. Something that took hours to do now takes minutes. Being able to do that, for lighting in the HVAC, and estimated another $1 million from that initiative. So that's phase 1. Next slide, I think we have phase 2. So things that where we want to get to that we're not quite there yet, but showing an additional $10 million in savings if we're able to achieve all these. So an automated diagnosis for hot and cold calls. So rather than having a person really dig in, have some artificial intelligence to say, okay, have you tried this, this, and this? All right, now we're going to automate a hot cold call to a supplier to get out there and fix it. Integrating it into service channel, or there are other platforms that work out there, so you don't need an actual person. I have a problem, now I have to open up a service ticket. Integrate your building controls directly to that platform, so that's automated. Then we've got some other various ones below here. I don't know, Kash, if you want to highlight any of the others, but just continuously trying to find savings within the system to help pay for itself.
I think the most important thing is that when you tally up all these numbers, and you think about what the capital cost is for a program like this goes a long way towards helping to pay for it. So I think we can probably go to the next slide, which is setting up the energy, or the efficiency as a service concept.
Yeah, so we can go there. So again, the thought on this is budget dollars are not available. And by the way, the cheapest way to do it is if you find capital, you don't have to pay interest on a lease, right? So there's That's the cheapest way that you can do it, by using your own capital. But if you can't get the budget dollars, there's a way, it's called efficiency as a service, that you can get that pot of money with no upfront cost. You can get cash flow positive from day one. You can potentially take it off balance sheet. That's totally up to your CFO. We've had some clients that keep it on, some clients that take it off. But you're able to pick what technology you want with a performance guarantee, and there's also maintenance that's built into that. So going to the next slide, if you don't mind, just to kind of get into it. So let's say the initiative costs $5 million to retrofit 500 locations across the country. You can't get the capital. We set you up with a supplier that can finance this for you as energy as a service. You get the $5 million up front. There's your capital. You deploy it across all 500 locations within a 6 to 10 month rollout schedule. Those energy savings that you're getting from doing that will not only pay the loan back with the interest, but it'll also put money back in your pocket. In other words, you're unfixing your fixed cost. You're going to pay that energy anyway. You're paying to run the lights, the HVAC, everything else, for how well or how bad it actually performs on site. This control system will drive savings, so you're not paying the utility company, for the energy. And instead, that portion of that savings, some of it goes towards paying back the financing on this energy as a service, and then a portion of it will go back into your pocket. So the net of it is your cash flow positive from day one. And this chart in front of you, it just shows there are other ways that you can lease it if you can't get the CapEx. CapEx is on the far right. But as a service checks a lot of the boxes where it makes it easier to get that funding up front. I don't know, Akash, did I miss anything?
No, that sounds great.
So like I said, I know that we were going a little bit over. Our apologies on that, but we wanted to end, with some time at the end here for some questions and answers. So I think without further ado, we'll open it up to the group.
Well, Akash and Derek, I want to thank you on behalf of the audience and the team at E&E Leader for a fantastic presentation today. We did get a few questions in, so before the top of the hour, we're going to do our best for our audience to answer as many questions as we can. And just a reminder, if we don't get a chance to answer your specific question, one of the presenters or a member of their team will follow up with you as soon as possible. So let's jump into this. Akash, I think I'm going to stick with you for most of these questions this afternoon. So let's start with this one. How can the use of building controls help with asset management?
Well, thanks. That's a great question. In particular, with asset management, one of the things that we're seeing a lot is that customers who have lots and lots of locations aren't necessarily sure what exactly they have in those locations. So it's a bit of a mystery, because at the time that assets such as lighting or HVAC or emergency lighting or what have you was put in, it wasn't really well documented. So one of the ways in which a controls program rollout can help with that is really utilizing the opportunity of having people in the field to have very substantial commissioning documents that include tagging those assets. And so one of the things that happened with this particular case study is that as we went through all these different locations, we created a very comprehensive library of asset tags. And the value of that is we've been able to match certain asset classes, such as HVAC units, along with the utility provider and the specific rate code that applies to that customer at that particular location. So as they're thinking about strategically deploying demand response, they know how old their units are, along with what utility those assets, those HVAC units line up with. So, to synthesize that a bit more is just the value of a controls rollout is it's another opportunity to get people back into your locations who can then create a library of what assets you have, how old they are, what make, model they are, what serial number they are, so that as you go back and revisit those locations, either through maintenance or through an energy program, you really can leverage the value of what's there and leverage the knowledge of what's there so that you can minimize truck rolls and all sorts of things. So Yeah, that's generally the approach that we take.
Which is a fantastic one because it provides invaluable information for everybody involved, for all stakeholders. So thank you for going into detail there. Let's jump into another question about brands of existing controls. What if I have different brands of existing controls? Can they talk together with a new system?
Yeah, so one of the things that is really cool about controls is that there are some open source communication protocols that all these different systems talk over and talk through. And so one of the most common ones is something called BACnet. And as a result of that being open, it really enables for the data to be commingled from different systems. And so you could have, for example, a building controller as a gateway device that's one manufacturer, and then you could have some field controllers that perhaps are made by somebody else. And so the most common instance where this arises is that someone has put in something that's a little older and something breaks, and we come along through a service call and update that field controller with something newer. And then because of the fact that the communication protocols are open, that information still comes up and you can still see it. Likewise, one of the projects that we're working on here internally is really creating a wrapper that goes over the top of all the data so that from a user interface perspective, a customer can see all that information regardless of who made the field equipment. And we have certain customers who are really excited about that because it really gives them the flexibility to choose whatever hardware they want, but at the same time have access to all the information. So, really briefly, it can work. The most important thing is work with somebody who's, really leans into helping you with open systems like EMC does.
Which is really great to know. Now, how long would it take to set up a system like this if we have different brands of existing controls? How long would it take just from, the initial meeting per se to it completely operational where, customers can look in and see exactly where the brands are and the information that they need?
Yeah, that's a great question. And usually it's very dependent upon the size, scale, and scope of what we're tackling. If it's a single location, we can tackle that much faster than if we're talking about something that requires us to deploy all over the United States. But typically the way this works is, we spend about a month to 2 months really in some pretty deep conversations with our customer, really understanding what their pain points are and bringing a solution to life. We go through a design phase where we're actually showing some visualizations of what that solution is going to look like, and then we go off and we go do. And so again, depending upon one site to many sites, you can start to see something turned around in a quarter to something that could take up to a year to do. But a lot of it is site really customer specific, but hopefully that gives you a rough sense of what we're thinking.
And that's pretty much what I was expecting you to say there. So I do appreciate that. I know we have attendees on from large as well as smaller companies. So thank you for going into that. And I know, Derek, we haven't had a chance to hear from you in the Q&A. Is there anything that you would like our audience to really take away with us before we close it up?
I think maybe one thing, and we had a slide on it, and thank you everybody for the opportunity for Akash and I to speak today. But it would be, Akash was talking about that discovery mode, right? So that could take 30 to 60 days. What are the wants? What are the needs? Getting something on paper, what we think we want the end result to be. But really where we learned a lot, and it's back to that process where we did a pilot. So we thought we knew what we wanted. We did 5 to 10 sites and realized, okay, these top 3, 4 things that we thought we needed, we're going to shift priorities here and change and tweak and do it a little bit different. Then we moved into a phase where we did 30 to 40 stores, made some final tweaks. Then we went full speed with the rest of the portfolio. So I think, in today's age where we just want to get things done as quickly as possible and move, I think for a situation like this with smart building controls or you're taking a big leap forward, having that phased approach really makes a lot of sense.
Oh, I couldn't think of a better way to kind of wrap up today's presentation. So I do want to say thank you to all of the attendees as well as the entire team at EMC for putting on a wonderful event today. And just a reminder, this event will be available on demand within a few hours. And I want to thank Akash and Derek for all of the expertise you put into today's event, and we look forward to working with you again. So at this point, we're going to conclude the webinar, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the day.